Hi, I'm Hector Garcia, CPA and Advanced QuickBooks Pro Advisor. And one of the industries that I work a lot with is the professional services industry. When we think of professional services, we think of law firms, medical firms, engineers, marketing professionals, business consultants, IT professionals, and pretty much any business that uses their workforce, their team members, their partners, their employees, and their knowledge to deliver their main product, which is to spend time transferring that knowledge or servicing their customers. And their most common measuring stick is that time component. Therefore, when we think of the pain points that these industries have, we think of time tracking, time management. We think of project management, which means how many projects can I take at one time, deadline management. Can I promise a specific date to a customer, or can I complete the project by that specific date? Capacity management. Do I have enough resources and team members available to complete all these projects? Customer communication and inter-team communications, which generally tend to be the biggest culprit of repeat work and productivity drain. And lastly, project profitability based on the cost of their team members, which is also most likely to be the biggest cost for these type of companies. Okay, let's go to QuickBooks Online and let's search for an app that will solve some of these pain points for a professional services firm. So I'm going to click on the Apps tab on the left-hand side. And then here on the search box, we're going to search things like CRM, which means Customer Relationship Management, which has to do with solving communication issues. We're going to look at here at project management and look at all the apps that are under project management. We can also search for time tracking and see all the apps that do time tracking. We could also search for workflow management, or anything with the word workflow, and see all the apps that do that. Now, another place to go is to click on Browse Category and click on Project Management. That's going to show you a couple of the apps that are best known for that. So you see right here, Aero Workflow. We're actually going to review, do a demo of Aero Workflow. We're going to click on Browse Category and click CRM. And we're going to do another review on Method CRM. So we're going to review those two apps and do a deep dive demo of each one. In this demo of Method CRM, which will take about 30 minutes, we will cover app setup and overview, managing contacts, creating invoices, creating a portal for customer access, managing tasks and activities, tracking opportunities or pending deals, converting opportunities to estimates, and finally, how the Method CRM transactions and QuickBooks Online flow together and sync after the transactions are completed. It is important to note that we're activating this new application from the end user or client's perspective. If you're an accounting professional and you want to activate a new application, you may need to log in with administrative access to be able to activate a new app to a company file. All right, let's start by setting up Method CRM. We're going to go ahead and click on Method and click on Get App Now. And once you go through the setup process, you're going to have the app up and running in the dashboard. That will be the first thing that you'll see. On the left navigation bar, you see the Method logo on the top, and you see all of these icons on the left icon bar. So you have things like the dashboard, which you're looking at the moment. You have bills, purchase orders, contacts, activities, opportunities, web to lead, invoices, estimates, sales receipts, and payments. Now, this looks a lot like QuickBooks Online because Method was actually built to be a parallel accounting software where almost every transaction that's on QuickBooks Online could also be seen in Method. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be transacting in Method, like creating the bills and paying those bills, although you can. That's not necessarily what it's meant to be used for. What most people use Method for is for contact management and activity management. So let's go ahead and create a contact. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Contacts. And this is my contact list, which is going to be shared with my customer list in QuickBooks Online. My current QuickBooks Online is completely blank, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new contact by clicking on New Contact on the right side of the screen. And notice I have a couple options here. I have customer, lead, vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and click on customer, and I'm going to type the customer's name and the company name. And optionally, I can put email, phone number, all that stuff if I want to. I can also assign it to a specific rep, which would be a user inside method. So it's up to you if you really want to assign a specific user to that. That's not a QuickBooks concept. That's entirely a method concept. So that's really up to you. And you can also add some address information if you like. When you're done creating the contact, we're going to click on Save on the top of the screen, or we can click on Save in the bottom of the screen as well. They both give the same exact results. Now, once the contact is created, you see it all here in the top side of the screen. You get some relevant information. From this screen, you can actually create some transactions. So you can actually create an invoice straight from the screen if you want to. So I'm going to click on New, and I'm going to pick a line item, and this would be the same item list I have in QuickBooks. I'm going to pick a quantity and a rate, and I'll scroll down and click on Save. So very quickly, we created a new customer and an invoice straight from method, and we're eventually going to see that come into QuickBooks. But some of the really great things that you see inside method is being able to create multiple contacts even within the same customer. So when I click on contacts here, I'm going to click on new contact. I'm going to call this an add contact to, which basically means I'm going to add another name, another point of contact to one customer that I already have in QuickBooks. So I'm going to select my current customer, Smith & Co., and I'm going to select another contact that I have inside of the company. And then in here, I can put information here in the tags. So I can call them procurement manager or something like that. That way I'll know exactly what this contact is all about. I can add their own email, their own phone number, their own website, their own social media profiles, all these things in case you want to do some sort of social media marketing campaign. So you are creating, in this case, a sub-contact inside of our current customer, which is Smith & Co. So I'll click on Save. Now, another really neat thing about the contact management is I can click on Edit Contact Details on the top right. And I can actually add a picture to that contact if I want to. So I can upload any image I want, a picture of the contact or any other relevant information. I can add it in there if I want to. Another really awesome thing about adding contacts in Method is you can give them access to a portal. So when you click on a portal and you click on Share, you can give them a special link via email or whichever way you communicate with them, and they will create their own username and password in which they can access the information that you're recording in Method CRM. So maybe you want to give them access to their invoices so they can see their invoice history. Maybe you want to give them access to some of the historical notes and tasks and communications that we've had with about the project or about the customer. You have the choice of giving them access to information that you want to inside of their own portal. So it's a great way to also communicate with your customers. Now you can also create activities, which is really one of the really important pieces about it, is to create tasks, right? So I'm going to click on New and create a new activity, and I'm going to add a description. So I'm going to say follow up on proposal request, right? So that's actually a great thing to do, is to start documenting the communication with the customer, especially if they are asking you to create proposals and that sort of thing. Under type, we're going to select the type, and there's a predetermined amount of activity types. You can actually create your own if you want to. I'm just going to call this one a phone call outgoing. And under status, I'm going to go ahead and put it as in progress. And I'll select some sort of date in the future to say, okay, I'm going to call them first thing December 3rd and schedule it. We can also choose which of the team members is going to be delegated that task to. So if you have multiple Method users, you can delegate it to a specific team member if you want to. Then we're going to have an activity open into the future, which we can later on go into the activities page, and we can track all of our activities based on when they're due. And you can follow up on those activities from here. And once you're done, you can click on any of those activities. You can add some additional notes if you want to. and you can also complete them. So you have a choice to change the status from in progress to completed, or you can scroll all the way down and click on complete and back. So that will close that task and no longer show it as a open task. And notice on the right side here where it gives me the actual status of the project. So we can actually create projects, we can create tasks, we can create specific opportunities, and we can assign them to multiple team members, assign them to yourself. And this is a great place for you to track all your activities, all your communications about a specific project or a specific potential project. We can also upgrade those activities to opportunities. So opportunities are similar to activities, but that's when we actually want to assign a potential dollar amount to it. So I'm going to click on new opportunity. I'll select my customer from my contact list. I will select the potential or the estimated close date. So let's say we assume we're going to bring this client in on January 2nd. We're going to give it a stage, and you can actually create multiple stages. So I'm going to put it under prospecting. So it's just kind of a 10% probability of closing. We're going to think that we're going to get about $5,000 for this project. Under type, we're going to put it under new business. You can also edit these types. So this is totally, completely customizable. We can also track where these leads are coming from, whether they're a referral or they came from our website. And we can also create reports that let us know where all these leads are coming from. Under opportunity name, we're going to call this one tax return. And under next step, we'll basically call it received last year for quote. And we can actually straight from here create a follow-up activity, which is great. So right now, when you create a follow-up activity, you immediately schedule that phone call. So we're going to assign that follow-up activity to one of our team members. We're going to say that that is going to require an outgoing phone call. Under follow-up status, we'll put it to in progress. And then under the follow-up date, we'll make it maybe a couple of days before we're going to start working on that project. So let's make it December 28th. So you kind of get the point. It's really, really interesting how you create these potential deals, potential opportunities. You put them into the pipeline. It will multiply times the probability of closure. So you're going to have the value of that opportunity or all your opportunities. So it also gives you an idea more or less in terms of capacity planning, how much potential projects are coming in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save. I'm going to click on opportunities again so we can see them in our list of opportunities. We have different filters here. For example, this is set up for the ones that we're expecting to close this month. We can change that just to like all the opportunities so we can see them all regardless of the projected close date. So you can sort it, you can save a report, you can open them from here, close them, change them, you can do all that. There's also a built-in web to lead form, which allows you to copy and paste some special HTML code into your website. So when you have inquiries coming from the website, folks wanting to know more information about your business, you enable this feature and those leads come straight into Method CRM so you can follow through with them. And that's web to lead. Now I'm going to go back to opportunities for a second to show you something. So when I open up the opportunity, and let's say we're now closer to the close date and the client went ahead and agreed to our deal, to our estimate, we can do it straight from the opportunity screen. We can create the estimate. So the idea is that we're not copy and pasting from one place to the other, and that we're also not spending too much time doing things inside QuickBooks that have to do with potential projects, project management, estimates, and other non-posting transactions that really have nothing to do with accounting itself. It has mostly to do with running the operation of professional services. And once you create the estimate, you can simply just pick the item that's going to be from your QuickBooks item list, pick the dollar amount, pick the quantity. Of course, whatever you had on the opportunity stage doesn't have to translate dollar to dollar. That can vary, of course. This will be the estimate that will translate over to QuickBooks though. So once you create this estimate, that information is going to translate over into QuickBooks. So let's talk about what the transactions that we create on Method look like in QuickBooks and what is it that we want to sync back and forth with the two apps. So if I move over to QuickBooks and I click on Sales and then I click on All Sales, you're going to notice that there's two transactions in QuickBooks Online here. We have an estimate and we have an invoice. I'm going to click on one of them. And this was created from Method CRMs. This was not created in QuickBooks. This was simply just translated from Method into QuickBooks. If I actually receive the payment inside QuickBooks like I normally would, and I go over into Method, and I click on Invoices, and I click on the actual invoice that I created in Method, you will notice that the invoice is actually marked paid. So all the things that I do in Method or QuickBooks Online are in complete sync. Now, if I go back into QuickBooks here and I click on the estimate and I change the estimate amount, so I'm going to change the estimate from 5,000 that was created in Method originally, I'm going to decrease it to 4,500 and click on Save. And I go into Estimates, you will also see that the estimate was changed, okay, with the new dollar amount. So it is a full sync capability. Same thing happens if I go into the bill section and I create a bill inside Method, for example, and I have to create a new vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new vendor, and I'm going to call this one Vendor XYZ, and click on Save and move over to QuickBooks and go into my expenses vendor screen. You will notice that the vendor is created as well. So there's full two-way sync capabilities between QuickBooks and Method. So what is the purpose? Why would you choose Method? Well, the way I look at Method is it's going to be a CRM application, a customer relationship management application. And it's going to allow you to not only track transactions related to your current customer, but you can also have a separate database of all the leads and potential customers that you don't need to be in QuickBooks yet because you're still in the early stages of closing the deals, of communication and opportunity management. In addition to that, you can use it as a task manager and a contact management to keep track of the future communications and current communications you have with your active clients. And right off the box, Method solves for that. In this demo of Aero workflow, which will take about 15 minutes, we will first do the app setup and a general overview. Then we will create a project or a job template. Then we'll create a new project or job from that template. We will then modify the steps or tasks within a specific job. We will then schedule recurring occurrences for a job. We will track time spent on tasks or jobs. We will create a new job from scratch without the use of a template. We will be discussing managing and syncing contact and customer information between QuickBooks Online and Aero Workflow. Then we will create a couple of job costing reports. And finally, we will discuss the Aero Workflow and QuickBooks Online workflow and exchange of information between the two apps. It is important to mention that we will set up Aero Workflow from the perspective of the client or the end user. If you're an accounting professional and want to add this app to a customer in your client list, you may need to access it as an administrator in order to enable the new app. All right, let's add Aero Workflow into our QuickBooks Online. So we're going to click on Apps and we're going to search for Aero. So that's AERO, and there it is, Aero Workflow. And we're going to click on Get App Now. After we get the app, Aero is going to launch, it's going to sync into QuickBooks Online. Our customer list and our employee list is going to sync together because we're going to tie our projects or our jobs to our QuickBooks Online customer list, and we're going to assign our tasks to our employees from QuickBooks Online. We could also create an additional set of employees or workers that are not part of QuickBooks Online but are part of Aero, so that's also a capability. So what is Aero Workflow? Aero Workflow is a workflow manager. It does time tracking at the task level and at the job level, and it also allows you to create templates with a predetermined set of tasks and steps that are supposed to be taken upon taking work that is repetitive or that is pre-planned. So the best way to describe Aero is a work, schedule, and workflow manager. At the heart of Aero, here's the Manage tab, and we're going to have the Aero templates. So the Aero templates are going to be a predetermined set of tasks that we have to do in order to complete a particular job. Now, that job could be one of many within a project, but the terminology that they use is very particular. So an arrow, it's any type of task or project or any sort of action that you need to take. In this particular case, we have an arrow template called month end close. If I open that, we're going to see a task called month end close. We're estimating that in average, this is going to take about 2 hours. Now, this is just a template, so we can still change it based on the customer and the project. And as we scroll down, we see the heart of Aero workflow, which are the steps. Now, the steps are the specific milestones within the task itself that once you do them all, you can mark the entire task completed. Now, this is a template, so each job could be different. But in this particular template, we laid out about 10 or 11 tasks here, and you can follow them. So we have make a journal entry, reconcile bank accounts, verify assets and liabilities, wash suspense account, and so forth. So there's specific tasks that you have to do in order to finish that complete arrow. Now, you can change the order of them simply by changing the numbers. If I make this one 25 and I'll make this one 40, once they resort and reload, you're going to see them in different order. And those numberings are important for you to set the order, so when the user is doing this work, they're doing it in a logical, sequential fashion. So once you're done setting up the tasks that are required in order to complete this entire job or arrow, we're going to click on Save and Close. And we just effectively changed our template. Now we want to assign this into a recurring project for a customer that would do that work for every single month. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that template and we're going to click here where it says Add Master Arrow. So a master arrow would be an arrow or a task that comes from a template that then gets scheduled or assigned to a job and also assigned to a person. So let's say for this particular job, we're going to type the customer's name here and select the customer's name. And we have an optional contact, so we also can assign the specific contact person within the company, assuming we have a multiple. Then we're going to select who we're going to assign to, so which staff member or team member inside our organization is now responsible for completing that task. We're also going to say that every single month that we create this is going to take roughly about 10 days. And we're going to estimate, let's say we're going to estimate 5 hours for this job each time. We can change the priority level, and this is really for reporting purposes. And we can set whether or not this is going to be something that we charge by the hour, so a billable job, or something that's part of a fixed fee. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Edit. And now our master arrow is completed. Now that the recurring master arrow is completed, we're going to scroll down and we can actually modify the actual tasks involved with this job. So we have everything that came in from the template, but let's assume that we know for a fact on this particular customer, we're going to omit this task. So we're going to click on Delete and we completely remove it from this particular job. You also have a couple of interesting options here. You can view any existing arrows or tasks that are already assigned to this project by clicking on arrows. So there really isn't any one right now set up. If we click on Vault, it's a great place for us to store sensitive information like user IDs, passwords, or specific information that we get from our customers. And then under time, we can have the history of all the time that has been logged to this specific job. So if I don't have to change anything else, I can click on recurring options and I can set this one up for monthly. So we can say, look, every single month at the beginning of each month, and it's never going to end, is going to be, for now, the recurring arrow that we want to set up. So every single month, this gets automatically assigned to the team member that's going to handle this project. So I'm going to click on Insert Occurrences. And this is going to future project all of these monthly tasks as arrows. And now they're fully set up. So now they're going to be on Carlos's schedule. So every single month, he can do the job and mark it completed. I'm going to go ahead and click Save and Close. And that will be it. Okay, I'm going to move on to Work and click on My Dashboard. And notice I'm logged in as myself, and there's been an arrow assigned to me. So this right here tells me that this is a task or a job that I need to do. I can just review this report, or I can actually use it to access the specific task and take some action. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the airplane icon there to launch the Aero. And now that the Aero is on active mode, this is where we said, okay, I started to do the job. Automatically in the bottom right, you're going to notice that the timer turns on. So the timer allows you to do two things. One, I can click on the icon itself, click on edit time, and come back and say, yeah, this took me 3 hours. Okay, so you can either use the timer or you can specifically set how many hours it took. Then you can go in the top and you can check off all the tasks that you have completed for the day. So let's say I got the first 3 tasks done, and I got the 5th and the 6th tasks done. Once I get those tasks completed, automatically on the time notes, it's going to add that text in there just to kind of let you know that when we did the time entry into Aero, we let them know that those jobs were completed, or those mini tasks or those milestones within the task were completed. So I can add in the comments something that's relevant, like, so customer will send missing documents. And that's information that I'll see as one of the team members, and anybody else that has access to looking at my work could also see those comments. So maybe they can jump in and help and add to the job. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Complete. Now I'm going to go to My Schedule, and notice that I have now marked this task complete, and I can actually open it and view any of the details behind it. I can update it by adding more checkboxes as I get farther along in the job. I can add more time here or more hours. So I can change that and say, well, this took me an additional hour here. Then I'll click Save and Complete. So now I can check my time tracking related to the job. So when I click on Manage and click on Time, I can actually see both time entries that I have entered for this job. So it looks like I've entered 3 hours in this one and 1 hour in this one. So this will keep a tally of the time that I've been spending at the job level. Not every task in Aero has to come from this big template with a list of procedures. You can go to quick links and add a quick task. So I'm going to add a quick task here, and I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to say it's going to take about 15 minutes. I'm going to put a due date for November 1st. I'm going to assign it to one of the team members. I'm going to choose the customer that's involved. I'm simply going to give it a name. So send reports to customer. So this is a one-time shot of a task that I'm creating, and I don't have to create all the steps. So notice that it gives me both options to add multiple steps if there are in fact multiple layers, or I can just click on create. Once I click on create, I can go to the work section and click on my arrows, and I can see all of the tasks that have been scheduled for me to do. Another really neat thing about Aero workflow is once you integrate your Aero with your email, you can create your emails from Aero. So you can click here where it says start email, and you can start typing your email from here. The reason why they included that is because in professional services, we spend so much time typing up emails with explanations, with procedures, and a lot of professionals want just the time that it takes to type an email to be timed as well. So if you want to take advantage of that timer and understand how much time you're spending sending emails and email responses, this could be a great tool. If I go into manage and manage contacts, what I'm going to see here essentially, it's my customer list, my vendor list, and my employee list from QuickBooks in a two-way sync. So I can create it from QuickBooks, it will come into Aero, I can create it from Aero, and it will go to QuickBooks. For example, I'm going to click on add contact, and I can create a new customer that's going to come into QuickBooks. I'm going to create a new customer called JJ Inc. and click on save and close. And I go back to creating the contact within the customer and then click save. So Aero workflow is also contact and customer centric. Now under manage and then companies, this is where you're going to see your actual customer list. So Aero creates this differentiation between the contact within the customer and the customer itself, but the terminology that they use is actually companies. So a company is actually your customer. Now, one of the great things that Aero has is the reports. So if you go to manage and then click on reports, there are some great profitability and estimate versus actual reports. For example, if I click on actual versus estimated time by team member and I click on run, I can actually see which were the arrows that we have pre-set up for the employee and how many hours we thought it was going to take versus how many hours it actually took. You can also look at the arrows percent completed by company, which will give you a report of all the tasks that have been completed and what are their percentage of completion based on the estimated time and the actual time that it took. You can also go to team members and click on arrows list by team members, and you can see all of the tasks that have been assigned to each team member, the scheduled start date, the estimated time, and the status of each job. There are also some interesting ones like customer last activity date, which will let you know what is the last thing that we have done for that specific customer. So that gives us a good idea if the customer calls asking for the status of the project, we'll know exactly what is the last thing that we did and what were the last comments entered by our team member. So let's talk about the workflow between Aero workflow and QuickBooks Online. Now you'll be glad to know that there are no invoices, estimates, bills, or anything like that being translated between QuickBooks Online and Aero workflow. As a matter of fact, the only information that's really relevant in terms of information flow between the two apps, it will be your customer names, which Aero calls companies, and your employees. When you look at QuickBooks Online and you look at timesheets, so I'm going to go ahead and open the timesheet for one of my employees. I'll select the employee here. And the only information that really translates over are timesheets. So Aero Workflow is essentially time tracking mechanism that has a lot of reports and has the capability to track completion dates and detail procedure lists for each task. But the only accounting information that actually comes into QuickBooks is going to be time. So in summary, what type of companies will be looking into Aero Workflow? Well, number one, if you're an accounting firm, you are highly likely to look into Aero Workflow because the built-in libraries, especially for new employees and for repetitive tasks, you're going to have your checklist and procedure list of all the things that need to be done already pre-built on top of the ones that you can build on your own. If you're in an architecture firm, a marketing firm, a consulting firm, or even an attorney, you may want to look at Aero Workflow because although it was designed really for an accounting firm, procedures, task, completion, delegation, these are all universal concepts of professional services firms. And with the time tracking capabilities, workflow and project management capabilities, and capability to build a knowledge base of all your procedures and processes, Aero Workflow will work really well. So finally, when we think about adding an app to QuickBooks Online for any professional services industry type business, we're looking for the app to solve for these key issues: time tracking, task scheduling, overall project scheduling and deadline management, customer and team interaction and customer and team communications, managing new leads, managing opportunities and future deals, and finally, project and job profitability that involves the labor costs of the team members.